live from the Women Inspiring Network. As you all know, Women Inspiring Network took shape during the lockdown. And when we did the webinar, we had close to 70 speakers and a 5 million reach. And Vani, who's a good friend of mine, she was also part of the Stimulus webinar. And then we did the Winning the Lockdown series, where we got 100 voices of positive voices of women across India. So they could be media entrepreneurs, media personalities, influencers, actors, politicians, sustainability activists. And of course, now in June, I have my very good friend Vani talking to us about films and more. So good evening, Vani, and thank you doing this for the Women Inspiring Network. So just to give a quick introduction for Vani, Vani is not just an actor, a politician, but now she's the youngest member of the censor board in India. And she has been an inspiration personally to me. So Vani, thank you for joining us today. And now
thank you, Stuti. Thank you so much for having me over, and congratulations to everybody who's connected to the Women Inspiring Network.
And tell us a bit about your journey, Vani. And then, of course, I'll talk a bit more about Vani, what she has been doing all these years. But tell us a bit about your journey and what you've been doing, because you're donning so many hats and now you're also a mother. So please tell us a bit about your journey.
Well, I call myself work in progress. There is so much more which needs to be done. And as far as women is concerned, it remains my core constituency. Which almost started many years ago when I was working with the National School of Drama, the Theatre and Education Company, where we actually devised a program how to work with young women, young girls, and young people, and empower them and create capacity building for them through theatre. And it's been exciting. I grew up in Delhi. Both my parents were academics. I was the only child. In my family, gender was not an issue because I was the only, daughter, the only child that they had. So I used to think that since I'm the center of their universe, once I started going to school and started going to college, it's then that I realized how much traction you feel with, as we say, the battle of the sexes and, gender and so on. So it's been exciting so far, and I still think there's so much more to learn and there's so much more to contribute to. I can't hear you, Stuti. I'm sorry. The audio link went somewhere.
Yeah,
now I can hear you. Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm saying you, of course, founded the Madhya Pradesh Natya Vidyalaya. You are now closely working with the Information of Broadcast Ministry and Government of India, international film festivals, and now being the youngest board member of the censor board in India. So tell us a bit more about that.
Well, the Natya Vidyalaya happened in Bhopal. I was one of the founding members. I worked with many seniors from the National School of Drama and theatre thespians from all across the country. And the idea behind the school was that since I was connected to National School of Drama, after the Rang Mandal and the Bharat Bhavan repertory shut down in Bhopal more than 2 decades ago, one always felt that the theatre community there was, left in the lurch. There were so many young people, and Madhya Pradesh is like a melting pot of culture, various Indian languages and various kinds of influences, both for theatre, arts and culture. So about 10 years ago, it came to my mind, and I have to vociferously thank the Madhya Pradesh government, and the present Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan ji was also the Chief Minister then, 10 years ago, when the school was founded. And it's one of its kind. It's a 1-year course as yet. I think we will diversify to a 3-year course soon. But the kind of work the school does is that it also looks at restoration of the folk theatre arts. We often know that folk artists do not have the kind of bandwidth that commercial performers and people who are in the mainstream is. They have tremendous work behind them, but don't get applauded for it. So one of the core areas of the school is also to look at the dying folk arts of Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and that region, and also to resurrect and restore them. As far as the ministry goes, yes, my work with the Central Board of Film Certification, I have a little problem with the censor board, what it's called. We are a certification board. And yes, I am, as I say, the junior most veteran of the board. This is my 6th year on the board, and it's challenging but also exciting when you belong to the film industry yourself. Most of your fraternity also thinks that, most of the work comes easy, but we are a hypersensitive democracy, and certification of cinema means protection of rights also for a lot of people, uh, whether it's Dalit rights or women rights, child rights. Increasingly, cinema is becoming more and more real, which is a good part in the country. But there are challenges as far as certification and content regulation is concerned in the country. And yes, for about 4 long years, I was a part of the core steering committee of the International Film Festival of India, Goa, which has grown from strength to strength. And my commitment to both the arts, theatre, and cinema. I don't just call myself a cinema person or a film actor. My beginning and my passion is theatre, and that will always remain so.
And so tell me a bit about the cinema which influenced you when you were growing up, and your present role. I mean, of course, you've just told us about your present role, but the cinema which you thought was thought provoking for you, and when you were growing up.
Yeah, so I would say that my growing up years belongs a lot to film festivals in India. Also, those years, International Film Festival of India, which happens in Goa, used to happen in Delhi. And since my both my parents were academics and were people of literature, they were deeply interested in theatre and cinema. Also, I must say a big thank you to Doordarshan, where fantastic cinema of that time when I was in school, whether it was a Govind Nilani, Sham Benegal, Sai Paranjpe, Kundan Shah. And I was very, very, very fortunate that I happened at a very young age when I started doing films. I could work with some of them, whether it was Aziz Mirza or Saeed Mirza, Kundan Shah, Mahesh Bhatt, who I started my career with, Pooja and Tanuja Chandra. I did my first film with. So I would say that I have, because the National School of Drama had a culture also to understand arts and theatre from another point of view. Despite the fact that the misnomer has always been that theatre actors uh, and cinema actors are different. Yes, the mediums are different, but the understanding of the narrative and the understanding of content, as we say, today also we have the OTT platforms, which is a completely new plethora of content consumption. But I must say that that whole era, what was called the big wave of parallel cinema, was tremendously impactful, whether it was Shambabu and films like Mandi, whether it was Govind Nilani and films like Ankush, Akrosh, and Nishant. I was very young, and I happened to see these films, and they've left an indelible impact. My present role, it's a lot of balancing act. Also, I'm a content creator today because I also produce, despite, apart from being an actor. So I have to juggle a lot of stuff, wearing these both these hats of being a content creator, and what people see me also is as a regulator, being on CBFC. But I think the passion for cinema is so great for people like me that anything which gets created, we are a land of kathavachaks, we are storytellers, and I think we will continue to tell stories, and that is what I enjoy most. I also teach a lot these days. I work with young students, both at the Bhopal Natya Vidyalaya, the Madhya Pradesh Natya Vidyalaya, but also whenever I have time at the National School of Drama and some other institutes all across the country and world over. And I think that also is very satisfactory because it gives me a lot of satisfaction to work with young people and to understand their minds. World has changed so drastically around us in the last decade or so. So it's always exciting to know young minds, and new opinions get created, by the way stories are told today.
So tell us a bit about the women initiatives. I know I have personally been inspired by you. I remember you are the one who actually got me interested in women leadership and women issues. I mean, if I go back to my journey of 10 years, I remember the Fortune Mentorship Program, and which I went to the United States. It made me think, but I know because I've known you for 15 years or more, and you've always actually encouraged me. You've made me see, which I wasn't really seeing it. And I'm so happy that, because of the lockdown, the Women Inspiring Network has sort of taken shape. I know I've tried to do my bits, over a period of time, but never in this fashion. And so since you've encouraged me, you've been my friend, you've been my advisor, and I want you to tell me a bit more about the women initiatives which you've done over a period of time so that you can inspire our viewers.
Well, thank you. It's your benevolence and your modesty to say that I'm a mentor to you. We are friends. And since you are interested in women, and I'm very proud of you that you ran a very successful communication agency for so many years, both in Bombay and Delhi, Mumbai and Delhi, I have to be politically correct here, with an all-women team. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot to only hire women, not in just in terms of messaging, but also in terms of, honing that capaciousness and that, hat. I think what is the most daunting task in India and has been is the capacity building for women. And one of the initiatives which I very early on started in my early days in politics, when I joined the BJP in 2004 as an absolutely young person who really didn't know much about politics but knew activism, and I had some good number of years of work behind me in the theatre, and I performed all across the country and in some other parts of the world too. One of the things which has always bothered me is that we don't do enough to build capacity for women as far as their communications is concerned. So one of the initiatives which I started when I was the National Secretary of the Youth Wing of the party, much before I became the All India Secretary of the party itself, was that I could launch a program of leadership for women under 35. And when I say this, it's very important. Over the years, we've done a lot of reservation. There's a lot of talk still going on in the parliament for a couple of years about reservation for women or quotas. In the West, quotas are taken as a swear word, but in India, it's a social leverage. And I always explain to women that it's only one point of, getting pulled up, and then, the challenge is furthermore. So one of the things I could do was to create capacity building for women who will be running for office tomorrow. Because what tends to happen is when you get sucked into a system and you get thrown into the deep waters of fighting an election, you actually don't know how to raise funds, which is so important, to communicate and to actually hold public rallies. India is a huge country. And every constituency, whether it's a parliament constituency or a legislative assembly constituency or even panchayat, I mean, if I go back to the 90s, there was a huge revolution which did happen when 33% reservation was given to women in the local self-governing bodies, what we call panchayats in India. And it was a change maker, but it took a while to become the change because the misnomer was that Panchpati, the husband, the brother, the son, the nephew will take over the election and the face will be women. 15 years later, very much in the mid 2000, those years, it was a completely changed scenario because women who had never gone out of the house and had not faced more than 5 men in their lives were actually communicating with 50 to 500 to 5,000 people of both the genders, So that itself is one of the biggest learnings, but that's a hit and trial method. So I always thought that women running for office should definitely have communicative skills and they should know fundraising. Elections is not a cheap proposition in India. Despite the cap of the election commission and so on, money is required. It always has been required and it is required, as far as, fighting an election is concerned. And that is where women fall short and they always have to look towards the other, which is the men. So one of the programs we could do being in the youth wing was to create this capacity building exercise. And then, of course, one thing led to another. I managed a lot of campaigns. I was one of the chief campaigners for many, many years of the party. Then I also became the All India Secretary and a spokesperson. I did understand that there's a huge struggle and a huge fight which happens when it comes to the men and the women also in the political arena of the country. Very much like the film industry, where equal pay is not there for women actresses or heroines. Very much as the arm candy routine of the film industry, but I think that over the decade has taken a huge quantum leap. Today, again, another misnomer that if the protagonist of a film is a woman, She will not be financed. The film will not get financed and it will never get released. Has all changed. NH10, Dirty Picture, Dam Laga Ke Aisha, Shubh Mangal Sangwa. The list is so long, Sant Ki Aankh, and I'm so proud to say this, that somewhere in the middle of this, I've also contributed to that narrative by being a part of some of these films. The latest one being Tappad of my dear friend Anubhav Sinha. I'm so proud of his team and Tapsi Pannu for the gorgeous work she's done in the film.
Yeah.
And also looking at small patriarchies and misogyny that we face every single day. But I think apart from large campaigns, what is most important is that I could start conversations within the industry between both paradigms. Governance doesn't often meet art, and art often doesn't get to meet governance. And for me, as far as women initiatives is concerned, that has been the most important collaboration. I also go beyond and say that Women for Women is something I actually don't adhere to. Because if Sofia Coppola gets the Best Film Director Award at the Cannes Film Festival, she's not getting it only because she's a woman. She's not made the film only for women. She's made it for all. And that is one thing that we must learn from. One of the things I fight or I speak about often, and some of my women rights activist friends sometimes disagree with me, we have to take the men on board. Because we may be 10, 12% in the parliament today as the governing structures of the country is concerned. But policy making will remain with the men. We will have to keep them on board. By shutting them out or shunning them, I don't think it's very collaborative.
So Vani, talking to you has given me so much more food for thought. This initiative which started the Women Inspiring Network in April, and every day when I'm speaking to women from different aspects of life, it's actually kept me inspired during this entire lockdown. But now when I'm talking to you, I'm actually getting goosebumps because I feel there's so much more I can learn from you. So my next question to you.
Stuti, we all teach each other. You're equally my teacher. I think the sisterhood that we have and the sisterhood we have created around us, those are the great learnings of life.
Yes.
We all learn from, and one thing I know about women, we collaborate very well with each other.
Yes.
And we know how to work with each other, which the men don't, and they will need to learn it from us.
Yeah, I mean, the Women Inspiring Network has really kept me inspired. The stories when people call us, there was the other day, someone who created a herbal mask brand reached us. There was the first gaming player who's been conferred an award by the government of India. So, different stories. We are also doing like a series on mental health, and people are coming out with their stories on what they've done or, what their journey into what they are today. So, I mean,
speaking of mental health, I would definitely want to say something about this dystopian time that you and I are speaking in. People are already saying post-COVID, post-COVID. There's no post-COVID. We are actually in the middle of COVID, and mental health, apart from the COVID, virus itself, is a huge problem. And one sad thing that I've noticed is domestic violence is at an all-time high. The National Commission for Women just a few weeks ago put out numbers where 300% more abuse is happening. So one message I want to use your platform and reach out to the women is safety for all should not mean unsafe environment for women at home. Yes. And remember, when abusers are individual, then there is one kind of torture, but when families get together and start abusing women, that is what is happening right now. So I would reach out and say, speak out now before it's too late, because there is a whole world waiting to hear you.
Yeah. In fact, one of the reasons why we also created the Women Inspiring Network, and I'm connected to a lot of women's organizations globally, and they were talking about this domestic violence. And I feel, speaking to you, and these issues which we are talking about should be spoken more in the open. And I would love to hear our viewers' thought on that. And, now I also wanted to know, what do you think about the evolution of films, and now you forayed into web series? Would you like to throw some light onto that?
So I think the OTT platforms, as it's called, is a democratization of content in India. And for a country like India, where cinema is religion, absolutely like cricket, suddenly there is a whole, new capacity building which is happening of young filmmakers, women writers, who actually used to, the problem in India is theatre density. We only have about 1700 exhibition halls in the country for a country which is one of the largest film producing nations of the world. And when I say this, there are so many young women and men who make films and don't see the light of the day as far as the release or exhibition of that is concerned. So OTT platforms have definitely democratized content. Women are right in the middle of it. Many more women writers, many more women directors, many more women actors are now getting so much more, opportunity, and there's so much more capacity building which is happening. But what has also started to happen is that in the name of liberal content, suddenly there is a lot of violence, lot of extreme explicitness which is available. Now, I know that most of these platforms like Amazon Prime and Netflix do put a lot of attention on age-related classification. But I think in a country like ours, where there is a CBFC which has been certifying cinema, people have to still figure out, the font can be so tiny of 18 plus, 16 plus, sometimes people don't know. We are also a very net savvy country. Households, so many millions of households have internet facilities. But what I say is the differentiation between content being in the palm. Now I can watch content in my private space personally, vis-a-vis the collective where thousands of people go or hundreds of people go into a theater and watch it together. There's a differentiation there. And as far as the web series segment, it's exciting. A lot of book acquisitions are happening, a lot of women's stories which also have women protagonists. You're also seeing an absolute new change of flavor. As I always say, the palette is new. I mean, the taste is new. We still have to see how many people are consuming it, but I think it's great celebration time that this new content is being put out.
So, in fact, what you just mentioned, today we are talking virtually, and because of several of our partners, we are being able to amplify our content to few million people. That's the power of technology, and that's where I see technology has taken us, even in the web series platform. So, on our next question, what role do you see for women in politics and films in the coming year? What changes do you see, a little bit on the evolution of women?
First, I will start with the cinema bit. I think it's an exciting time for women and women actors, writers, directors, editors, cinematographers. There are so many more women technicians which was never heard of in India before. And I think the narrative is very, very simple. It's a good story, even if it's a women protagonist. Again, imagine I still have to use the word even if. So the glass ceiling is not entirely broken. But yes, the awareness towards the glass ceiling is much more. And so many these exciting actresses, fantastic women performers. It's a Tapsi Pannu, then there is a Bhumi Pednekar. I mean, look at these girls, the kind of exciting work they are doing, both in mainstream commercial films, both in films which are probably a little offbeat. I think now is the time to tell stories which are real, which may be uncouth, and which are probably also ugly. And do not judge me for the word ugly. I'm not talking about the fair and lovely routine here. The ugly bit is that we were very scared to look at stories which spoke about us, which were about you and me, because we were so used to the hero bashing up 35 goons and the arm candy of the babe in the woods being rescued. That routine is over. Also, I have a personal resolve. I am really against objectification of women in cinema, and I don't. I have no qualms in saying that no more Munnis will become Badnaam and no more Salma ki Jawanis will be discussed till people like me are sitting on this board. The board under the chairmanship of Prasoon Joshi, I have a Vidya Balan, one of the finest actresses of our times, a gorgeous Gautami, a very big star down south, and so many other well-meaning, well-thinking people from arts, performing arts, cinema and theatre on the board for the first time. We have decided that we will look at overcorrection of portrayal of women. So you will have a cheap item number in a film. I'm saying this on record on your platform today. I will not pass it because it's high time we stop this cheap objectification of women. Until this is not going to stop, Don't expect, people on the street not to whistle at women. Don't expect them not to be eve teasing them, and don't expect molestations to come to an end. The crime rate in the city of Delhi, where you and I are sitting, is one of the highest in the country. So shame on us. But remember, you and I have to stop watching this garbage. If we will stop watching this garbage, these guys will stop producing it.
Yeah. And which film has inspired you, Vani, the most?
So many, but in recent times, I think Thappad is a path-breaking film which talks about nuances of misogyny and nuances of abuse. When Anubhav was writing the script, and he shared this with me, and I've said this just 2 days ago at a very big webinar, one of the conversations I was having with him for the Jaipur Literature Festival, and I said to him, initially when I read the script, I said, everybody's going to ask, just one thappad. Just one thappad. So he said, I've made this film for the men, and they have to understand even one thappad is not, is not going to be acceptable anymore. So I think path-breaking cinema like this, cinema which is coming out of these young stable of various young filmmakers, young writers, men who are writing for women, men who are portraying women more sensitively than women themselves. That's why I'm saying it's time for shared collaboration. But one of the films which has had a very indelible and a deep impact on me, and which has just remained with me through and through, is a film called Bhumika. It was on the life of a very tragic life of a famous Marathi actor, and Smita Patil, did that role, and I think that has remained with me. The portrayal, I mean, that is somewhere almost identifiable for me. That what kind of lives actors have, women actors have, with an abusive, husband behind you, and you are the main breadwinner of the family, and you are so wonderful at your craft, and yet each day to go through that abuse and to go through that kind of pain. I think that is a film that is one of my hallmark films of all times. I have watched it hundreds of times, and I can still continue to watch it. Each time I watch it, it does something else to me. I find a new meaning in it.
I remember you showing us the preview of Thappad, and when I went with my young team, all women team, they were all surprised. I mean, it was thought provoking. So thank you so much for inviting us for that. But tell me, Vani, did your work get affected during lockdown, or how did you use your time more strategically?
Well, unfortunately, I've been very busy during the lockdown. I mean, I was looking after my mother, who was very unwell, and I'm the only child, and my father's no more. So the first 2.5 months was day and night of work, and obviously I've not used to doing housework so much, in so many years as a working woman, though I think I'm a great multitasker. So looking after her, I think was fantastic, going back to my childhood, staying with my mom, and in a community of academics. Also, it was a great time for me to go back to my community. I mean, professors and people I grew up with. It was almost like revisiting my whole childhood with them. And otherwise, I'm a young mother, so I have a 2.5-year-old daughter who's absolutely hands-full. She's a hurricane and requires all the time in the world. But I have been working. I sleep very little, so reading, writing happens very late at night. I've been writing a lot. I write a regular blog for a big national newspaper, which gets published every now and then. And I also write a lot for policy. I write for forums, whenever on women leadership and governance. And so I've been reading and writing a lot. But I must also say that one thing which kept me sane in this lockdown was radio. I tried not to binge watch too much on the OTT because the eyes get very, very tired looking at a screen all day. You're doing webinars, you're on video conference calls, you're on work calls. And then how do you switch off? I think music is the best way to switch off because it relaxes the mind. Also, because I was listening to radio day in and day out, I could also listen to some very new film songs which I had not heard of, though they are very popular numbers. which was like a great learning experience. But I think these times have been very challenging for most of us because we are all workaholics and we don't know confinement. And when I say confinement, I also look at people who probably have to live with large families in 1 or 2 rooms. I mean, maybe we are more privileged to have large houses, and spaces of our own to work and, think in. I'm actually sitting in my library right now, which is a beautiful space surrounded by books and so many things. But so many people don't have that luxury, and for them, my heart goes out, or how difficult this time has been for them. I must also say that the migrant labor and film industry is a labor-intensive industry. A lot of our everyday daily wagers have had a very tough time. So I was also trying to reach out. A few of us got together and tried to do whatever we could in our personal capacity to make life a little more simpler for them. But if this is the new normal, it's a terrible new normal. And it's like a long dystopian film. We are all actors in it. We don't know how the beginning, at least in a film, you know the beginning, middle, and the end. We're right in the middle of it and we really don't know when it's going to end. I don't want to sound ominous about it, but as far as the media and entertainment industry is concerned, it's been a very challenging time, for most of us creatively.
Yeah, but it's also given us some food for thought. It's at least made us stop and rethink ourselves, re-strategize and reset ourselves. We were all always running and doing things. So on the
that I agree. Like I said, I went back to a community of people I had not met in a while, being with my mother. But it's also there's a word which I am suddenly reminded of, and that is called recalibration. I think we will have to recalibrate everything, Stuti. We will have to recalibrate the way we even live, the way we look at life. We will have to recalibrate the way we tell stories, the way we earn our bread, the way we treat our people around us, and most importantly, recalibrate the way we treat Mother Nature. This is almost like a big kick on our backsides, where Mother Earth is saying, you have done disaster with me. You have messed up my ecology. You messed up the environment. Pay a price for this, damn it.
Yeah. And Vani, I have so much more to learn from you being an actor, producer, drama. I know you're teaching. You're a teacher at the National School of Drama, politics, a mother, writer, the youngest board member of the film certification. And maybe you're doing many more things. Which would you like to throw a light on anything, or which has been your best phase? I mean, that's like asking me to sum up anything you'd like to throw light, which you think I may not have covered, and you would like to let our viewers know.
Well, you've almost written my autobiography in this half an hour also. But thank you so much, Stuti, for this conversation, and more power to Women Inspiring Network, because I think it's a very important platform that women get their voices out. One of the things which bothers me and which I'm trying to work at every day, also in terms of storytelling, is misogyny. And I want to leave everybody with this thought that misogyny is something that you're faced with every single day. The judgments that you have to face within families, within workspaces, within environment around you, you don't attach much importance to it because you're very busy trying to prove yourself. But I think it's time to call out misogynists now. Whether it was the Me Too movement in India, again, the epicenter of which, like Hollywood, was the Indian film industry. I have little issues with the word Bollywood, but that's another big conversation that you and I can have, of being a poor cousin of Hollywood. I think we are an Indian film industry with the diversity of so many Indian languages. But the brotherhood took over. And that Me Too movement was like a big wave of a high tide which came, and then it died down. But I think somewhere it has opened doors to something that we were very inconvenient to speak about, and there was a conspiracy of silence about it, and that was the way women are judged. They are judged for their bodies, we are judged for our skin color, we are judged for how we are, how we look, how we talk. Men don't face that every day. And I think now, this time that we've spent within ourselves and the way families have actually gotten together and also have helped each other. This is a time there should be a resolve to call out misogyny. If you see a film where a hero slaps a heroine and gets away with it, stop it. Speak about it. No more Kabir Singhs should be allowed in terms of storytelling anymore. No more men equating women's bodies to alcohol bottles should be allowed anymore, and no more spitting and shouting abuses at women should be allowed anywhere. And if educated, privileged women like you and me will not stop it, and let me also tell you, there is a misnomer that abuse happens most in the economically lower strata of the society. I would correct everybody here and say that looking at figures, statistics, and personal experience, the higher you go, the uglier it becomes. And I think to take abuse is almost like getting tortured in a concentration camp. If somebody reaches out to you, or if you feel there is trouble with a sister around you, she could not be related to you, she could not be a blood relative, she could not have been a friend. But if somebody you know, reach out and help her now, because tomorrow you could be the one who may be needing help.
Any last message, a winning message to inspire our viewers, especially in tier 2, tier 3, small towns, women in India?
Women are great storytellers. Maya Angelou very famously said that we have 1 million stories inside of us waiting to come out. So come out with them. Take your iPhones, take your Android devices, take your phones and tell those stories, and do it on camera. Be confident about who you are and tell the stories now. If you can tell a beautiful bedtime story to your little girl or your little boy and put him or her to sleep at night, you can also be a great storyteller. Find confidence and find a voice. I think this is the time to tell these stories. These stories need to come out and the time is now.
Thank you so much, Vani, for joining us. And you've been truly an inspiration for me for the years I've known you. It's been great putting together the platform. I know you've been encouraging me for the last few months. You'd always tell me, Stuti, have the confidence to do it. And I truly have got the confidence, and I am, taking the plunge. Okay, let me get more voices out there. Every once in a while, we all need to be inspired by each other, as you said. And we've had a great response for all the viewers. As you know, in April, we had 5 million reach. I'm hoping in June, we would have reached 10 million reach, of viewers. We have a sustainability pledge coming up next month. Like, what can we do, our pledge to be more sustainable. So that's something which we should watch out. But on behalf of the Women Inspiring Network, Vani, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Stuti, and keep the fire burning. And all the women who are attached to the Women Inspiring Network, and to you, get the men in too. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.